Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling something that, well, it's a generation gap, but it's happening faster and maybe more invisibly than any we've seen before. We're talking about the generative AI gap.
It really is a tectonic shift. And what's so striking is that it's happening almost entirely under the radar of most adults.
Right.
This isn't just about kids adopting a new app. We're talking about a fundamental rewiring of how young people are socializing, how they're getting emotional support, even how they navigate risk, all through chatbots like ChatGPT, Character.ai, you name it.
And the scale is just staggering. I was looking at the source material, and one of the studies cited shows that, what was it, 79% of online 13 to 17-year-olds in the UK are already using generative AI.
79%. It's practically universal.
Yeah.
And that number, it should be a siren call for parents, for educators, for anyone who's invested in the next generation's, mental health and privacy.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this deep dive so critical, because the key insight from all this research isn't just that they're using AI, it's how. What kids are actually doing with GAI is so different from what their parents think is going on.
Precisely. The typical parent's mental model, it's shaped by what they read in the news.
Sure. They're using it to cheat on their homework.
Exactly. Maybe they're searching for some facts for a history paper. But our sources, and this is mainly a big mixed methods study, it looked at over 700 Reddit posts and did these really detailed interviews with 20 people, teens and parents. And that research reveals a reality that is just. It's far more personal, it's more emotionally charged, and frankly, it's completely unsupervised.
I love that they use that combined approach. The Reddit analysis gives you this raw, unfiltered look.
It's organic?
Yeah, you see what they're actually talking about with each other. But then the interviews, they let you dig in and get the context, get the why behind the behavior from both the kids and the parents.
You need both sides of that coin, because when you compare what parents think the risks are, like, data collection, with what teenagers are actually experiencing, things like dependency, social anxiety, you see this huge disconnect.
It's not just a small misalignment.
No, they're operating in completely different orbits, and that's why all the current safety measures are failing.
So our mission today is to bridge that gap. We're going to unpack exactly how teens are using GAI in these really intimate ways that parents just aren't seeing. We'll get into why the current safety tools are falling so short.
Yeah.
And then spend some real time on what we can actually do about it. Sounds good. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with what the teens are actually doing with GAI, because it is so much more than just asking for a summary of The Great Gatsby.
So much more.
So when the researchers started digging through all that data, the interviews, the Reddit threads, they found that the most common use for these conversational AIs, it wasn't for school, it wasn't for, technical stuff.
Yeah.
It was for emotional support and companionship.
And that one finding, that just changes everything about how we need to think about this technology in the hands of young people.
It really does.
They're not treating these chatbots like tools. They're treating them like resources, social and emotional resources that are always on, always available. They're using them as friends, as confidants.
And as free therapy. That phrase came up again and again.
It's an incredibly powerful phrase, isn't it? And maybe a little alarming. It just encapsulates the whole utility for them.
So what is it about the AI that makes it so appealing for that intimate role? I mean, compared to talking to a friend or, an actual therapist.
Well, there are a few things that make it a much safer, lower friction option for a vulnerable teenager. First, they know it's a machine, but the responses are so good now they feel human-like.
Right, the realism is there.
That brings the comfort level way up. And second, and this is the absolute key, the interaction is totally non-judgmental, and it's private.
It completely eliminates the social risk.
Completely.
If you're a teen and you have a question about something embarrassing, or you're dealing with a crisis, or even if you just have a niche interest your friends would make fun of, the AI is a safe space. You can openly talk through and navigate your issues, as one user put it.
Exactly. Another quote from the research was that with the GAI, they don't have to worry about the impact on my social life. They can vent about their parents, share their deepest fears, confess something they're ashamed of, and there are zero real-world consequences.
No risk to their social standing.
None. And that safety allows for a kind of emotional exploration they just wouldn't risk with a peer, or even a school counselor who might have to report something.
It's interesting that some teens said they could have more profound discussions with an AI about their interests than with their actual friends.
It speaks to a deep need for connection, doesn't it? And for validation that their immediate social circles just aren't fulfilling.
Yeah. There's another quote that really stuck with me. A user said the AI characters were supportive and attentive, and that let them talk about my emotions without it being improper or putting pressure on others.
That fear of being a burden, that's a huge psychological barrier for so many teens. The
Huge.
GAI just removes that burden entirely. It's an optimized connection. It's always there. It never gets tired of you. It never criticizes. It's designed to be supportive.
So for a kid dealing with loneliness or social anxiety, it's filling this profound, critical need for a connection they feel they can't get elsewhere.
And, that search for a low-risk connection, it inevitably moves beyond just friendship.
Right. It extends into the social and even the romantic frontier. How does that leap happen from AI friend to AI partner?
It's a very natural next step, especially if the teen feels isolated. We see them, adding bots to their group chats to spice things up or whatever. But the much more concerning trend is the rise of these explicit virtual romantic relationships. Yeah, users are detailing their entire romantic lives with these AIs. They're using the conversations to live out fantasies or just to find an emotional stability that they're lacking in the real world.
And that really speaks to the loneliness epidemic we hear so much about. The sources quoted users saying they felt so lonely, or that they believed, I will not find a significant other in real life. The AI it steps right into that void.
And crucially, it provides stability. This quote from a user just floored me. They said, GAI does not have the capability to break up with me.
Wow.
Think about that. In the world of teenage relationships, which is so volatile and full of rejection, the AI offers a completely safe, predictable, and always available partner.
It takes away all the pain of vulnerability.
It sidesteps it entirely. And this isn't just happening in isolation in a kid's bedroom. The peer influence is real. One user mentioned, at my school, there's an online server for an AI dating club.
An AI dating club, so it's being normalized within their peer groups.
It is. But here's the tension. Even with that normalization, they know it's not normal. One user confessed they felt like a failure and a loser for relying on an AI.
So there's shame attached to it.
A lot of shame. There's this internal conflict. The desperate need for connection is driving them to use it, but the social stigma is making them feel terrible about it. That's a really dangerous place for a teen's mental health to be.
Okay, so we have this whole spectrum, from utility to companionship to dependency to romance. Now we have to pivot to the darker side of this, where, immaturity and curiosity collide, the engagement with risky behavior and manipulation.
Yeah, this part of the research, mostly from the Reddit analysis, is what you might call digital antagonism. And a lot of it involved the intentional torture of GAI chatbots.
Torture? What does that even look like in practice?
It's users detailing how they would intentionally gaslight and antagonize character.ai, trying to provoke very specific, usually negative reactions from the AI.
Like a science experiment.
A pretty twisted one. The examples are really concerning. People were trying to manipulate AI into having suicidal thoughts. And then, and this just shows the bizarre emotional disconnect, they might immediately turn around and try to riz AI again.
Okay, for our listeners, riz means to flirt with or seduce someone. So they go from psychological torture to flirting in the same conversation.
In the same breath. The volatility is just.
Yeah.
It's breathtaking. And it comes from the fact that there are no ethical guardrails. The AI isn't a person, so the rules of social conduct they vanish.
It becomes a consequence-free sandbox for cruelty.
Exactly. For control, for antagonism. And the attitude of the teens doing this, the sources showed a pervasive indifference, a real lack of remorse.
They just don't see it as a problem.
Not at all. It's just a thing you can do to a machine. This is a huge psychological question for me. If you practice cruelty in a totally consequence-free environment, what does that do to your development of real-world empathy?
That's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving from manipulation to something a bit more calculated. The hunt for not safe for work or NSFW content. How are they getting around the filters on the big platforms?
They just go where the filters are weaker. It's a classic cat and mouse game. The teen social networks are incredibly efficient at spreading the word.
Right.
So while character.ai is pretty restrictive, the kids quickly learn about platforms like Chai AI, which was explicitly mentioned as having fewer constraints, allowing for NSFW content.
So it's a whack-a-mole problem.
Yeah.
One platform tightens up, and TikTok or Discord immediately points them to the next one.
Absolutely. The discovery process is the Achilles heel for any parent trying to keep up.
And last and maybe most disturbing misuse, actually came from the parents in the interviews. The idea of kids creating their own offensive chatbots.
Yes, this is a whole other level. It's not just consuming bad content, it's becoming a distributor of it.
Hmm.
Parents talked about their kids creating custom AI personalities specifically to generate and spread racist and harmful material.
The example of the chatbot making racist comments about Anne Frank and Hitler,
Hmm.
that's just... It's an extreme form of boundary testing.
It is. And one parent really nailed the problem. Children are immature, so they think that kind of behavior is acceptable. The GAI platform just gives them an infinitely scalable tool to express that immaturity and shock value. It's not just an edgy doodle anymore.
It's an interactive character they can share with their friends that continuously spouts hate.
It turns the GAI platform into an active, dangerous vector for this stuff.
What a stark picture. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's how they're using it. Which leads us to the really critical question. Why are parents so blind to all this? This is the critical perception gap.
Right, so we have this complex, emotionally charged reality of teen usage. And then you have the adult perspective, which is it's fundamentally outdated. They're stuck on the threat model of Web 2.0.
They're worried about the things they've been warned about for the last 20 years with social media. Let's break down what the parents are actually seeing.
Their fears really cluster around four main areas. First is a classic one, exposure to inappropriate content, sexual, violent, racist material.
The usual suspects.
But with a bit of a nuance. They also worry that even if a topic is technically age-appropriate, say a medical condition, the AI will give a response that's way too detailed or overwhelming for their child's maturity level.
That's a fair concern. And the second one?
Data collection and misuse. The classic privacy fear. Sharing your address, your health info with this friendly chatbot.
And their fear here is often based on a misunderstanding of the tech, right?
Completely. There was a great example of a parent who used ChatGPT for trip planning. The itinerary it gave back was so personalized, so perfect, that the parent's immediate conclusion was that the AI must be secretly scanning their browser history.
Which is fascinating. They assume smart equals invasive.
Exactly. They don't realize that the personalization probably came from clues they gave in the prompt itself. But because they don't understand the mechanism, they jump to the worst-case privacy scenario.
Okay, their third worry was misinformation and hallucinations.
And this one is totally valid. They're afraid their kids will take whatever the GAI spits out as absolute truth without ever checking it.
Which is easy to do when kids already see AI as this super intelligent, all-knowing thing.
It has this unearned authority, so when it hallucinates and just makes something up, the child's trust model makes them likely to believe it.
And the last one was deepfakes. But not their kids making them, but being victims of them.
Right. The fear is about somebody else misusing their child's image. The quote that stood out was the worry about seeing children's face on a nude body. They understand that once that image is out there, the damage is done.
Okay, so those are the parental fears. Content, data, misinformation, deepfakes. Pretty standard stuff. Now, here's the aha moment. What are the teens actually afraid of?
It's a completely different list. Their fears are internal, psychological, and social. It reflects how deeply they're actually using the tools. Number one, by a long shot, was addiction and dependency.
This is an existential threat to their development. They know it's a problem.
They absolutely know it. They can feel the AI becoming an emotional crutch that's stopping them from functioning in the real world. One user said, "I waste too much time on character.ai. I would like to be able to converse with my peers at school."
They can see the trade-off they're making.
And sometimes the dependency is severe. One user posted, "With character.ai unavailable, how do I cope with my suicidal thoughts?" That's not just a habit. That's a deeply entrenched psychological reliance on an algorithm for emotional stability.
That is terrifying. What was their second big concern?
This one is new and specific to GAI, social context risks. Basically, the weaponization of AI by their peers.
Like a new form of cyberbullying.
A much more powerful form. It's not just mean texts. It's using the AI to generate targeted, distressing content on demand. The spider example is perfect.
Right. Tell us about that.
A participant described a friend in a group chat who knew another friend was terrified of spiders. So he used a GAI bot to just spam the chat with an endless stream of AI-generated spider images, specifically to torment that one person.
That's digital sadism enabled by AI. You can attack someone's specific phobia instantly and relentlessly.
And because it's in a private chat, It's invisible to parents, but it creates huge emotional conflict within the peer group.
Okay, and their third concern was also about privacy, but with a twist.
Yeah, it wasn't about the platform stealing their data. It was about privacy invasion by their peers.
What does that look like?
They were worried that their friends could take their photos or things they said in a chat and use that to create AI-generated content of them, like AI stickers or even a full AI bot that impersonates them, all without their consent.
The thought of a friend making a digital puppet of you, that's horrifying for a teenager.
It's a deep violation of identity. The need for consent came up over and over again in the Reddit threads. They get that AI makes it way too easy to replicate someone's identity without permission.
So this massive gap, parents fearing big tech, kids fearing their friends and their own dependency, it all seems to come from these flawed mental models of what GAI even is.
That's the root of it. The kids mostly thought of GAI as either a search engine or a vast database.
And that's dangerous because
Because if you think it's just searching for stuff that's already out there, then sharing your personal story doesn't feel like a risk. You don't realize the AI is learning from your unique input and that your input could be leaked later.
and some parents had an even riskier idea.
Oh, yeah. Some assumed the GAI platforms are doing fact-checking and truth verification. One parent said, "I assume it uses some form of fact-based checking." That belief gives the AI this ultimate authority, and it removes the responsibility to be critical of the output.
And this all ties back to how they discovered these platforms in the first place. Parents hear about ChatGPT on the news.
Right. And kids hear about Character.ai and Chai AI from a TikTok video or a link in a Discord server. It's a totally separate information ecosystem.
Which means the kids are being funneled to these potentially riskier, less regulated platforms that parents have never even heard of.
It's lightning-fast diffusion of risk, and no parental control app can keep up with that.
It's a structural knowledge gap. Okay, so if the risks are so real, and the kids are even aware of some of them, why do they keep sharing so much sensitive information? Let's get into that privacy trade-off.
This really comes down to a kind of a philosophy of resignation. They're choosing utility and convenience over trying to avoid every single risk.
The fair game mindset. I hear this all the time. My data is already out there, so what's the difference?
Exactly. One person literally said, "I'm doing the same risk by using the app like Instagram or Facebook." They feel like the privacy war is already lost, so why not get the massive benefit that GAI offers in return for a little more data?
And the utility is huge. For something high stakes, like getting help with your resume or understanding a complex medical diagnosis,
They see disclosure as a necessary cost. One person, P10, admitted to sharing very detailed personal work stories to get help with their resume, arguing, "If I don't provide those contents, ChatGPT won't work."
the output is only as good as the input.
And for complex tasks, you need complex, sensitive input. It's become indispensable for a lot of people. Another user, P15, just flat out said, "I cannot imagine myself doing my work without ChatGPT."
But they do draw a line somewhere, right?
Oh, absolutely. They won't use it for the highest risk stuff. Detailed financial planning was a big one. The privacy concerns were just too significant. The utility wasn't worth the perceived risk of sharing all your income and asset details.
So in that gray area where it's important but also sensitive, they're not just passive victims. They're actively trying to protect themselves with these ad hoc strategies.
Yes, and the fact that they have to invent these manual workarounds shows how poorly the platforms are designed for privacy. The first strategy is basically censoring and falsifying.
So they're lying to the AI.
Pretty much, they're giving it fake names, fake details. For career advice, someone gave a similar but not their actual college name. They're manually scrubbing the PII to give the AI just enough to work with, but not the real traceable stuff.
And the second strategy is sanitizing inputs, especially for work stuff.
Right. If you're asking it to edit an email, you first have to manually go through and remove your colleague's name, their phone number, all the third-party data that's in there. Then you put it back in after the AI is done.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. It requires this constant vigilance. And the third strategy is even more technical. It's called segmentation.
What's that?
It's a way to stop the model from learning a whole document. One user was worried about the AI memorizing his unpublished research paper, so he would only copy and paste 1 or 2 sentences at a time for proofreading.
Wow.
He was intentionally breaking the document into tiny pieces so the AI never saw the whole thing at once.
The amount of effort going into these manual defenses is just... It's a huge red flag that the platform isn't doing its job.
And it brings us to the biggest, most invisible threat of all: memorization risk. This is the one most people are completely blind to.
Explain this one for us, because it's unique to LLMs.
Okay, so memorization risk means the AI can unintentionally remember bits of its training data, which includes your conversations, and then leak that data in response to a totally different user somewhere else in the world.
Give me a concrete example.
Let's say you paste in an unredacted legal document to get a quick summary. The AI learns from that. A month later, some student asks the AI a very obscure question, and by pure algorithmic chance, the AI's response includes a sentence or a specific case number from your private legal document.
It just coughs it up.
It just coughs it up. A spontaneous, non-consensual data leak.
And people have no idea this can happen. Why not?
It comes back to those flawed mental models. They think their input is just a quality indicator, not actual training data that can be memorized. The risk feels too abstract because they've never seen it happen or read a news story about it. It's an invisible threat.
And this whole privacy mess gets even worse when you think about interdependent privacy. It's not just your own data.
That's the real mind bender. We are constantly sharing information about other people without their consent. Your friend, your client, your doctor.
When you ask ChatGPT to help you reply to an email, you're pasting in someone else's words, their contact info.
And they have no idea. Our current privacy controls, like an opt-out button, are useless for that person. The privacy violation is created by the interaction between two other people and the AI. The whole model is built for a single user, but the data involves a multitude.
Which is the perfect setup for our next section, the failure of current controls. Given all these issues, why are the current safety tools falling so short?
It's a profound failure, really, both from the AI platforms and from the general operating systems people use.
Let's start with the platforms themselves. What are they actually offering?
The bare minimum, truly. Most of them, ChatGPT included, just have a simple content ban on explicit stuff and a 13+ age requirement.
But no real age verification.
None. There's no effective way to check. And more importantly, there are no real parental controls built into the GAI app itself. They block the obvious bad words, but they do nothing to address dependency or peer manipulation.
So if the platform isn't helping, parents fall back on things like iOS family sharing or Google Family Link. How do those hold up?
They fall short dramatically because those tools were designed for an older internet. They can, limit screen time or block an app download, but they cannot see the real-time conversational content inside a third-party app.
So a parent sees their kid spent 3 hours on character.ai, but has no clue if they were getting homework help or being groomed.
That's the core inadequacy. The parent is blind to the actual interaction. It forces them into these really invasive and ineffective strategies, like demanding to read their kid's chat history, which a savvy kid can just delete anyway.
Or giving parents 2010s tools to fight a 2024 problem.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And this is where it gets really, really interesting, because we move from just inadequacy to what you could call straight-up malicious design, the dark patterns in opt-out design.
Oh, absolutely. Even when there is a privacy control, it's often designed to trick you or discourage you from using it. The first problem is just a total lack of awareness.
About the default setting, which is?
The default is opt-in for model training. All your chats are being used to train the model unless you find the setting and turn it off.
And most people didn't know that.
Most had no idea. And they were angry, especially the paying customers. One guy who paid for ChatGPT Plus was like, I think OpenAI should not use my data. I paid for my ChatGPT. There's an expectation that paying gets you more privacy.
A reasonable one. But the biggest problem is the bundling trap.
This is a classic dark pattern. The main, easy-to-find privacy toggle. It forces you to turn off your chat history at the same time you opt out of training.
And chat history is a critical feature.
It's essential. It's how you go back to old conversations, continue complex tasks. If you turn it off, every chat starts from scratch. It wipes out all the context.
So they're forcing a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You could have privacy, or you can have the full utility of the product you're paying for.
Yeah.
But you can't have both.
Exactly. It's a terrible choice. One user said, I'm a little annoyed. I still want to keep my history, so I need to provide my information for them to train. They're using a desired feature to basically coerce you into giving them training data.
But here's the kicker. The ability to opt out and keep your history, it exists.
It exists, but it's the hidden solution. You have to find a link buried deep in an FAQ article, which takes you to a separate form you have to fill out.
And not a single person in the study found this on their own.
Not one. The friction is the point. They're making it hard on purpose. As one person said, if it's not easy to find, I feel like the form will be complicated. I would probably just not fill it out.
It's textbook dark pattern design. And it leads to this one-size-fits-all model where the AI is completely context agnostic.
Right. It treats your request for a recipe the same way it treats your therapy session. The privacy controls are just one big on-off switch for your entire account.
When what people really want is granularity, like an incognito mode for certain chats.
Yes, they want to be able to say, okay, this conversation about my medical history is private and shouldn't be used for training, but you can use the one where I asked for a poem. The current binary system is just, it's wildly insufficient for how people actually use these tools.
If the controls are this broken, we have to demand fundamental changes. So let's move to the path forward. What are the design implications?
Well, the first thing is that parents feel completely overwhelmed and out of their depth. They need help. So the first step is a need for expert transparency and a risk taxonomy.
This isn't about making every parent a data scientist. It's about demanding clear, simple information from the developers, like a nutrition label on food.
Exactly. Parents want a systematic, expert-approved list of risks for each platform. They expect the GAI companies to take responsibility for educating them and their kids. The platform should have to tell you, clearly and simply, this AI can memorize your data and leak it.
The second area is about moving beyond simple censorship. Just blocking sensitive topics doesn't work.
It just pushes kids to find the information on sketchier parts of the internet. The research was clear. Parents don't want to block questions about sensitive topics. They want the AI to provide age-appropriate responses.
So to do that, the sources propose this idea of a parent-AI collaborative system. What does that look like?
It means the parent becomes an active participant. They get tools that let them personalize the content filters based on their own child's maturity and their family's values.
So a parent could decide their 16-year-old is ready for detailed historical content, but not explicit relationship advice, and they could fine-tune the AI's filter model to match that.
Yes, the parent becomes the tuner of the model. And this is critical. This has to be integrated smoothly. On a platform like Character.ai, the safety feature needs to stay in character. You can't have the AI suddenly break its role to give a jarring system warning.
That's a huge design challenge. How do you have a fantasy character give real-world safety advice without destroying the entire experience?
It's a massive challenge, but it's necessary. And just filtering content isn't enough, because it doesn't address why the child is turning to an AI in the first place.
Right, which brings us to the last big idea, using the AI itself to facilitate family communication.
The proposal is for a dedicated support chatbot that acts as a safe intermediary. If the system detects a child is expressing, say, feelings of intense loneliness.
It could trigger an intervention from this support bot.
Exactly. And this bot would be designed to explain the risks of dependency, offer coping strategies, and do it all in a safer and more understanding environment than a direct, maybe confrontational conversation with a parent.
So it respects the kid's need for privacy in the moment, but also educates them and gently encourages them to talk to a trusted adult.
It's about using the technology to build a bridge, not just a wall.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Let's try to wrap this up. We've gone through a pretty exhaustive deep dive here, and the findings are pretty stark.
I think the core challenge isn't the technology itself. It's the profound divergence in how teens and parents see it and use it.
That usage gap is just, it's a chasm. Teens are having these deeply emotional, sometimes risky interactions, using AI for therapy, for companionship, things parents are completely missing.
And they're missing it because their mental models are wrong and they don't even know about the platforms their kids are on.
And we've seen that the existing controls are failing. They're either technically inadequate or, worse, the platforms are using dark patterns to actively discourage privacy.
Yeah, that bundling trap is a perfect example.
So the path forward has to evolve more transparency from experts and these new collaborative safety systems that are more sophisticated than just simple censorship.
We need systems that are context-aware, that are privacy-respecting by their very design, not as an afterthought.
Right. The burden can't be on the user to manually redact every sensitive piece of information. The system itself has to change.
Yeah.
But, and this brings us to the final thought, this creates a huge structural problem.
It does, because the very thing that makes these models so powerful, their intelligence, their ability to be a good friend or a therapy assistant, it relies entirely on being trained on massive, massive amounts of user data.
Including every single one of those intimate conversations we've been talking about today.
This creates a structural incentive for these platforms to collect data, not to protect it. Their models get better the more data they have.
So if these models are going to keep getting more sophisticated, and if our reliance on them for these deeply personal tasks keeps growing,
You have to ask the question, can a genuinely privacy-preserving LLM system even exist? I mean, one that gives you both the incredible utility we're getting used to and the granular privacy controls we're saying we need.
or is pervasive data collection, a kind of constant surveillance, just the inherent non-negotiable price we have to pay for this technology?
Are we building systems that require surveillance just to function at the level we now demand?
We'll leave you to think about that. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.